personal standpoint, I'm okay with the categories, and I'm okay with winning a Grammy if something is album of the year because we all contributed. Or I'm okay with if it gets best rap album, I get a Grammy as well because if I mix more than 51% of the album, absolutely I contributed to it being what it became. I'm okay with playing a part. I'm not seeking individual accolades. I'm not seeking, there should be a mixer of the year Grammy, or there should be a recorded of the so-and-so Grammy. I'm personally, I'm not into that. So that might be an unpopular opinion coming from an engineer, but I've always said I'd rather be a small part of something great than be a large part of something okay. So I like playing a role. And I like that there are tons of other parts and moving parts, mastering engineers, and recording engineers, and producers, and songwriters, and artists, and product managers, and business managers, and the legal department. So I love that there's so many moving parts to a successful record. And I think what happens is when you start getting too finite, singling out roles and Grammys, well, why do I deserve a Grammy when the legal department doesn't, or the so-and-so doesn't, or everybody came together to make this record, whatever record we're talking about, a thing. And, so again, that's just a very personal and probably a very unpopular opinion that it doesn't bother me. I'm not one of the engineers going, we need our own category, or we need our own thing. I'm not.
And it's really, going to be interesting to see how they select, or how you all vote, really is how I should say it, how you all vote for Songwriter of the Year non-classical, because it's got to get narrowed down to, a handful of people that you all are going to vote for. You've worked with some wonderful songwriters. It's got to be a challenge for you. So can you give us some insight into, since I'm just talking to you, can you give us some insight into what you take into consideration when you're looking at who's nominated? Because these may all be people you've worked for. Now you got to pick, out of all the people that you worked for.
Yeah, I think my train of thought is always trying to be objective as possible. And then my criteria revolves around impact and influence and that kind of thing. So a lot of times, and everybody has their own criteria. Some people just go with whatever's the most popular, what sold the most, or da-da-da. I'm really big on impact and influence. And when you see people who can, write, hit after hit after hit that influence the culture and the cultural standpoint of where we are. I mean, that's an interesting conversation to get into. And there's some, and when you look at obviously the non-classical category, where you're talking about hip hop and R&B and pop, and there's a lot of phenomenal writers out there. And there's a lot of artists sometimes. Sometimes I think the artists get short end of the stick because people tend to think they know how the industry works, and they think it's always an artist, a producer, and a songwriter. Some artists write their own stuff. And some artists are really good at writing their own stuff. And some artists write phenomenal things that can really influence generations and influence things. Like even when you look at somebody like Pharrell, and he's won Producer of the Year several, he's written most of the songs he's produced. He may very well enter into my mind and certain other people's minds as he might should be up for a songwriter's award too, because he's written all of these hits. He wrote Happy. He wrote all these hits for a lot of different people. So when you sit there and you kind of start picking that apart, it's a process to really think about. But I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun to kind of acknowledge the work of some of the songs. And again, I don't want my last statement to be painted with ignorance on a level of course, there's certain parts that can be perceived as more important when you look at the writing of the song X, Y, and Z. But I just, I think it'd be interesting to start looking at some of my colleagues and friends and people that I'm around, people I've thought of as just artists or just producers who actually write a ton of stuff and write amazing.
When you look at these categories that have been added, so I'll say them again: Songwriter of the Year non-classical, Best Alternative Music Performance, Best Americana Performance, Best Score Soundtrack for Video Games and Other Interactive Media, Best Spoken Word Poetry Album. When you see that as a voting member, and I'm sure you had some communication with the, with the Academy, do you think these were the 5 that needed to be added? Or in your opinion, was there something that could have taken priority over one of these categories?
Well, I always think using words like priority is relative and it's very subjective. And we all, we just went through this whole cultural movement of, well, Black Lives Matter, well, all lives matter, well, da-da-da. And I understand from one side of that argument, you can say, well, it's the Black lives that were in danger, or X, Y, and Z, and, all this kind of stuff. And so priority is always relative to the person. And I think that I personally haven't given it a whole lot of thought to say, ooh, they should have added this instead of this. I'm just glad they're making progress. I don't have any problems with any of the categories that were added. None of them sprung out to me as, oh, why didn't they do that? And why didn't they do something else? I'm just glad they're making progress. And it's one of those things where when you know the inner workings of how these things have worked for years, it's just a huge win that they're actually adding categories and actually really acknowledge. It's the same way I feel about the Olympics. Anybody that knows me know I'm a huge fan of like the Olympics and sports and blah. And I love when they acknowledge the change in times and they add skateboarding, they add breakdancing, and they add, things that are relative to the people, to the audience you're trying to engage with. So I think just off top, all those categories sound fine to me.
And they even, I don't have it on my hand right now, but they even made some adjustments to some rules, I think, as well. And they renamed a couple of categories. Like I know Best Dance Recording is now called Best like EDM or Electronic something. Like they renamed a couple too. Do you feel as a voting member that the Academy is actually listening to you?
Yes. And by example, that's actually a perfect example because the thing is, what we call, my age group would call it house music or dance music. EDM music, it's the same thing. It's 4 beats on the floor. We all call it 4 on the floor music. It's the same thing. It's oops, 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 oops.
There's a lot of DJs that would disagree with you, just saying.
I agree. But what I'm saying is, and my point is, that's the thing is because someone like me would say, well, it's dance music, it's house music, it's EDM, it's all got the same root, I think I say kudos to the Grammys for getting to the root of it and saying, no, this is EDM. This should be acknowledged as EDM. Now, what would be weird is if they renamed a certain genre or just said, okay, this is EDM, but they didn't acknowledge the dance or the whatever other names, that gets tricky. But to acknowledge that where we are now it's EDM. EDM is the primary form of music that takes up the space that dance and house took up when we were young. So that's what I meant to say. I'm not trying to say it's the same thing. I'm saying we value it the same way. It's 4 on the floor. You're in the club, lasers going, da da da. It's what we did. Now it's EDM, and it's it is different, and it's important to acknowledge the names along, so I think those kind of changes are good changes to be able to say, you know what, let's do an EDM category, or let's not just do rap, let's do hip hop, because just like you said, my mom would say rap and hip hop is the same thing. Me and my friends would argue it is not the same thing.
Yeah.
What Will Smith does is not what Talib Kweli does.
Correct.
One is rap and one is hip hop. And we know the difference, and it's important to educate the world and people who want to learn about the genres. And, so I think the Grammys play an important part in that. As you acknowledge people for being the best at something, it's important to start getting the terms right. So, absolutely.
So, with that being said, do you think that the Grammys or the Academy is trying to be too inclusive, trying to make everybody happy by continuing to add these categories and part of the reason I ask that is because as voting members, you have a lot of people with specific interest in making sure there is a category for either their type of artist or what they consider their style of music. So do you think it's getting out of hand? Because we're already looking at, so we've got 91 total awards, 91. And I'm not saying it's not, necessary, but I'm just saying 91 awards. I guarantee more will be added. But right now, this is the most since 2010. Are we doing too much?
Here's the thing. I think sometimes what we need to do as a society, and I've said this a lot of times in many areas, I think it applies here, we need to re-examine the things we're so used to saying. And we've heard for a long time, oh, you can't please everybody. And I think that is a realistic way to look at something. Mm-hmm. But it's not such an unrealistic or not such a undesirable goal. It's no different from, I know as a human being walking this earth, I don't think I would ever be a perfect being. However, I can strive for perfection. I can try. I can do the things that try to put me on that path and da-da-da. So I think sometimes we get into these habits of saying you can't please everybody. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to include everybody and make everybody feel heard and, X, Y, and Z. So, and like anything else in life, there's balance. So to your point, I don't think we should go overboard and hand out awards for every single thing that has been done. Like, my kids' soccer thing, I'd be having a major problem with that. I'd be like, everybody shouldn't get a trophy on the team because everybody ain't performed well. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest. So I don't enroll my kids in any kind of sport where everybody gets a trophy. And my wife knows that that's one thing that just bothers me to no end. So I feel like there is balance. However, I don't think the goal should ever not be to try to please everybody. I just think there also should be realistic expectations that you're probably never going to. And I don't think one needs to eradicate the other. I don't think you need to say, well, because we can't please everybody, we shouldn't try. No, you should still try it. I don't think I'll ever be a perfect human, but I'm going to try, That's kind of how I look at that.
Along those same lines, but I'm going to switch up the question at the end. This past Grammy, the 64th Grammy, there was a lot of chatter and, hurt feelings, I guess you could say. A lot of people were not happy about Soulja winning the Best Reggae Album award. I believe that's the award that they won. And then there became this whole discussion about, they're not even from Jamaica and all this kind of thing. So we talk about, being too picky. Do you think there should be some authentication to the award as far as like some of these genres are concerned?
Well, I would argue this. Knowing nothing about the album that won, the band that won, whatever the case may be, I think people tend to look at authentication differently in a sense of if the marker is that anybody who wins a reggae album got to be from Jamaica, I don't think that's progressive. I think you have to acknowledge the roots of something, but to say, that would be like saying no restaurant in America that's an Italian restaurant can win a Restaurant of the Year award because the people who run the restaurant came from Italy, and that's not fair to say. Somebody could have Kobe grew up in Italy. He's not Italian, but he could have learned how to make pizza or X, Y, and Z and do it well with authenticity, honoring the culture, everything else, and have something that's an amazing product. So I think sometimes people need to separate. It's important to define criteria. If your criteria is, well, they got to be from Jamaica, then okay, I hear your argument. But if your criteria is, was it the best reggae album? Is that the debate? But when you start throwing things in like, well, they ain't even from Jamaica, that don't matter to me. If my criteria is, which was the best album? That's what I'm voting on. And again, awards in general present all kind of arguments because it's all subjective.
Yeah.
Nobody can sit here and tell me that one thing is the absolute best over another's opinions. And when I hear people like a Kanye or The Weeknd or whoever crying and bitching about they didn't get nominated for this or they didn't get nominated for that, I'll be like, bro, go make a better album. A lot of people obviously didn't like your album enough to vote for it. So, yeah, and even if you feel like you sold more than everybody else, that isn't always indicative of what culturally moves needles. I tell people all the time. I just had this debate the other day where somebody said to me, hey, who do you think was more influential, Drake or Future? I was like, Future. Everybody looked at me like I was crazy. Yes, Drake has sold way more than Future. He's way more popular than Future on a global scale. But Future is more influential to the culture when you look at how people dress, the records they make, all that stuff. So my point is, criteria is important before you get into an argument. You asking me who's the most influential to the culture, don't look at me like I'm crazy when I say Future. If you ask me who's the most popular, I'm going to say Drake. So, you know.
Now, I'm just curious about your own personal process. When you, as a voting member, sit down to go through all these, how does it come? Like a big sheet and you just go through and check off who you want to vote for?
For the nomination process, you get to nominate whoever you want. There's a round of nomination where everybody just submits a pool of people. And then they start the rounds of, let's narrow it down. So you see a bunch of names. It's you may see 90-something names. You have to go down a long list of people and start picking off. And it kind of works for me how movies work for me, where when I go see a movie, I know in my heart of hearts, I remember when I saw Training Day. Very first time I saw Training Day, I turned to my wife, who was at the time my girlfriend, and I said, you know what? He might very well win an Oscar for this performance. This was a really good performance. And not to say I can call it every time. I'm just saying I know those movies that hit me a certain way. I know that Top Gun Maverick is probably going to be the best movie in theaters all year. That was an excellent movie. And not just for the action, but for how it honored the original movie, for the time in between, to be able to pull off a sequel that just as good, all these things. So what I'm saying is, if that movie got nominated for something in movie category, somewhere along the line, I'm sure some of the voting members are checking it off in their heads. So as I hear an album, I go, oh, this was a solid album. I'm probably going to vote for this when voting comes around. Because you just know. You know those records, you know those albums that just move you. I remember when Justin Bieber dropped that album. And I remember the first time I listened to that album, I was like, and of course I listened to it just from a different perspective. Josh Goodwin, my buddy, fellow Hall of Famer, mixed the album. And so we're always checking each other's work and looking out to see what everybody's doing. I remember when I listened to it, I called Josh and I was like, bro, this is a masterpiece. This album is amazing. So it's no surprise to me that it ended up nominated for Album of the Year, because in my brain, and I'm sure in a lot of other people's brain, when they heard it, they checked it off as, okay, I'm going to vote for that. So I think the process happens as you consume. You kind of know the good one. I'm the biggest Drake fan there is, but this album Drake just dropped a couple of days ago is terrible. I'm not voting for that for anything.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I'm a huge Drake fan. I don't think nobody's a bigger Drake fan. But that album was garbage. I'm not voting for that at any point in my life.
There's a lot of people that complain about the Grammys and say they don't care if they win a Grammy. It's too hyped up, this, that, and the other thing. Do you think the Academy is doing a good job of educating its members about its purpose or its significance to the music community? Do you think, as a member, do you think that they're doing a good job of that to make sure people are actually submitting, hey, I want to become a voting member, or hey, Leslie, could you, that's how you get in there. Either you submit and hope that they pick you, or somebody like you recommends.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I think that's the thing. I think the process itself alleviates people who really don't want to be a part of the process, because it ain't the easiest thing to get into, and you do have to get a recommendation. And so when you have to try to do it a little bit, it means something to you. And most of the people I know that vote, I think they do a heartfelt job in voting. You're all in any situation where the entire content and outcome is subjective, you're going to have people that say, oh, it ain't fair. Oh, they don't choose right. Blah, blah. It's subjective. So there is no fair. You can't. There is no way to adjudicate fairness in something that's based on every single person's opinion. And so that's just, to me, that's just a given. There ain't no fair. There's no fair in that. There's what people like and what they don't like. Everybody, will say that, the year when Cardi B, I've heard several people tell me the year when Cardi B won Best Rap Album, that she didn't deserve it. And that I think somebody else, Pusha T was in that category at the time for his Daytona album or whatever. And as a hip hop purist and fan, a hip hop purist would be like, nah, Pusha T, over Cardi B. Cardi B was all commercial and watered down. But there was enough people that thought she did a really good job putting a good album together. It's subjective, I personally, I don't have the bandwidth or the brain power to get into subjective arguments. I just don't even think it's I think it's pointless. Yeah. I'm not about to argue with somebody if Prince or Michael Jackson was better. I'm just going to tell you what I like better. You tell me what you like better. I'm going to tell you my reason. Tell me your reason. But my goal is not going to be to convince you that Michael was better than Prince. My goal is going to be to tell you Michael had a bigger impact on my life. Them songs meant more to me. I related to them. I didn't really relate to Prince running around showing his butt. And, I thought Purple Rain was a genius movie and a genius soundtrack. But just overall, that's my opinion. I'm going to pick Michael. But we all have our reasons, and it's subjective. I'm not going to think any less of you if you say, no, Prince I thought was better. Of course. We all think differently. So,
do we have any questions from the... No questions from the audience? Just want to make sure I give them a chance to ask before I keep going.
Okay.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. So that brings me to this, just, I've never asked you as many times as I've had an opportunity to interview you, so thank you again. I can add this to my list of Leslie interviews. There was something I've never asked you, and it was about, your bucket list when it came to these awards. So at the beginning of the conversation, I asked if you thought there should be a, best mix engineer or best engineer for a track, right? Or a record, excuse me. Bruce Swedien, your mentor, whatever. Bruce has, if I'm not mistaken, 4 best engineered album Grammys. I think it's 4. He's got 2 for Michael Jackson. Darn, I had it in my head and I can't remember what the other 2 were, but I think it's 4. Anyway, with having somebody like that, the person you've looked up to, is it on Leslie Brathwaite's bucket list? Even though you said it doesn't really matter, is it on your bucket list just because you looked up to Bruce so much to get your own best engineered album Grammy?
You know what? No, and I'll tell you what. And I will correct you on something you just said. Okay. It's not that it doesn't really matter. It's just not something I'm pursuing or wanting or needing. I will tell you that something that meant way more to me than any statue, any award, any best engineered anything. I remember sitting down with Bruce one specific weekend at his house. I hadn't seen him in a while, and then me and Ashish drove up to Ocala to go see him. And we sat down, and the first thing Bruce said to me was, I've been meaning to tell you, that mix on Happy was amazing. And that was such a good mix. And he went into, it wasn't just a light compliment. It was specific. He was like, the way you did this thing on the kick, and what did you guys use on the so-and-so, and we had the nerdiest conversation of the guy I consider to be the GOAT, godfather of mixing, complimenting me on a mix. There is no award on the planet that was better than that moment, that would ever be better than that moment, period.
That's awesome.
That was the best moment for me. I had goosebumps. I was tripping. I remember I ran in the bathroom. I called Doris, called my wife, and I was like, babe, Bruce just said he loved Happy, and then he went into all this nerdy stuff and da-da-da. There's no award on the planet that I could put on any shelf that would mean more than that. So,
yeah, that had to be amazing because that means he really listened to the song and just stripped it down and really he legitimately was looking at your work, which I agree with you. There couldn't be a bigger compliment than that. That's
And there are
awesome.
very few opinions that I care about as far as
Right.
my work, and
Right.
Bruce is one of them.
Exactly.
So the fact that he took the time to compliment me, break it down, tell me all the things he loved about it, ask me questions, ask me what did I do, blah blah blah. Like that was it for me. I don't never have to win another award in life, and I'm like that awards, again. So, and I'm not saying they don't matter. I do understand the significance. I
Right.
appreciate when I win awards, but I honestly, truth to God, I just do not. I don't be sitting there. It's funny on Grammy nights. A lot of times, like I be working or doing whatever. People be texting me like, "Oh, you just won a so and so," or I don't be sitting there trying to count what I won, and that ain't. I don't know. That's just not my thing.
What was I gonna? Oh, so you were talking about how you like the fact that that the Academy is actually listening to you guys as members, and that you're seeing the evolution. So that leads me to this question, because a lot of articles are coming out about how NFTs are going to change, the music industry and all this sort of thing. Do you anticipate a Grammy for best NFT project or something like that? And what do you think the
No.
criteria would be if they tried to put it?
Here's the thing about NFTs. The problem with the whole conversation about NFTs, cryptocurrency, all that stuff, is people don't separate things. And what, to me, the viable and most important aspect to all of those things is the blockchain technology. The blockchain technology is amazing. NFTs, when you have currency, when something involves exchange, that's why it's called currency. When you have something that it involves an exchange, the thing that you're exchanging has to be backed by something of value. That's why a promissory note, $1, a $20 bill, is backed by gold. When you have something that is a currency that is not backed by anything other than the transactions themselves, I don't think that's something that's sustainable. I could be dead wrong, but I do not think so. I think the valuable thing, and as we see right now, all the cryptocurrency is crashing. But what the valuable thing is, the blockchain technology, the way the crypto transactions are reported, and the public ledger and all that stuff, that's valuable. So NFTs has kind of been lumped into this, oh, it's the future, blah, blah, blah. And I do think there's value in all of it. What I tend to think, based on what I've taken the time to learn about all of it, is the blockchain technology is the valuable thing. I don't think NFTs are going to take over the world, and I don't think cryptocurrency is going to become as common and as exchangeable as the way our currency currently works. I do think there is a place for it in the world. I just don't think it's going to be what people think it is. I do not think there'll be a category for best NFT album, all this stuff. I don't believe in that side of it as much. I do believe in the blockchain technology. I think the technology is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think people just aren't educated enough to even understand the distinction between the three. Everybody thinks cryptocurrency, blockchain, and NFTs are all the same thing. And it's all very different.
I don't know, Leslie. I really think that somebody over there at the Academy, and I know it's you guys as voting members, I really think, I could be wrong, just like I could be dead wrong, but I really think somebody is going to propose a category for NFT projects. And with that being said, go ahead.
I wouldn't think it wouldn't be the most far-fetched thing in the world.
Right.
Let's put it that way. I agree. It wouldn't be far-fetched.
So would you skip over that category then? Would you just not vote if an NFT category was created?
I would only vote if I feel like I was educated enough on the things in the category. That's kind of my criteria now. Because even there are times, I remember a couple, like for instance, this past year, I did not vote on the reggae category because I wasn't really in tune with a lot of the artists I was seeing and the nominations. there are times when I'm very involved in the reggae category because, I mean, that's my roots. And yes, I know a lot of reggae acts and albums that drop in specific years, but some years I don't pay attention to nothing that dropped in the reggae category. So I'd be like, you know what? I'm not going to vote in that category because I don't really. So I think the same logic would apply to the NFT category. If it became a category, it would be case by case. It would be year by year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the beauty of that process, is giving me the option to vote for the things I know I authentically can have a good say about, instead of forcing me to vote for things that I have no idea about.
You're obviously a member because not only do you participate in the process of these wonderful, tracks getting done, so obviously you think it's important. Would you encourage students to join Grammy U?
Yeah, and from my knowledge, I'm not super extensive on it. I feel like there are other grads like Marcella, she's a governor, I believe, and a couple other people. I know Sebastian would be a little more versed in it than me, but I do know that it's more than just about winning stuff, and more than just about awards. It's about educating, it's about outreach, it's about helping people understand musical history, culture. But Grammy U is a big deal. It's not just, people see the word Grammy on anything and think it's just about awards and shiny statues.
Right.
And it's far from that. It's about a whole lot more. That I do know.
And do you think by joining Grammy U, it's an opportunity for the students to get a better understanding of what NARIS is about, what their role is participating in the industry? Obviously,
Absolutely.
it's entertainment, but it's a whole community of the entertainment industry. And like you said, it's more than just an award once a year. I know we're talking about the categories, but really quick, because, there are students that are like, should I join Grammy U? Should I not? What does that mean for me as a creator or a participant in this industry? In your opinion, in your experience, what are some of the things that the Academy has done over the course of the year that you feel are really good signs about the direction it's moving in?
I think one of the greatest things they've done in recent, they had closed door meetings and conversations between a lot of the voting members. I was on a couple of these Zooms and calls and panels where we talked about all the stuff that's going on in society, and Black Lives Matter, and the nation was in upheaval over the killing of young Black men, and then it went into more racial conversations and politics and Trump and not Trump and none of that. We had all them kind of conversations on Zoom. So I think it's important to understand that you're right, it's a community, and it's about educating people about different things. And I would always say, in the spirit of what I always promote, which is always being a posture of learning, joining things is part of that posture. I'm a part of everything. If they gave out a membership card for everything moving, I got to stack up somewhere. I'm a part of every single something. Because when you join something, you automatically learn about this thing, about what they're doing. If it's something that don't apply to you, or if it don't stick, cool. But joining, you just learn. So I join everything. Joining is learning. The minute you join something, they're going to educate you about what they're doing. So that's part of your education. That's part of continually learning. Just join everything. I join all kinds of stuff. I'm in all kind of, I'll be getting people calling me talking about, you were a so-and-so member of so-and-so. I'm like, oh, man, okay. But it's just about learning the processes, learning the thing. And you will join some things that don't interest you, and you kind of go, okay, well, whatever. But you will join some things and you will learn some things that do interest you. So I would absolutely encourage the students to take the leap, join. It ain't like you're committing your life and your firstborn child or nothing. Just join something and learn.
Well, I know you're on vacation. Your wife is probably standing behind your camera like, come on, let's go. So
my wife is face down on a massage table right now, not thinking about our kids. Our kids are in the room ordering whatever they feel like. I'm going to get back and have the most ridiculous room service bill.
I bet you will. I bet you will. Well, thank you for taking time out during your vacation. I can't say thank you enough on behalf of the school, the students, the faculty. We always love talking to you. So We'll bug you when you get back. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get your massage and your spa treatment. Thank you, everybody.
Right.
That's all the time we got because I got to let Leslie enjoy his beautiful vacation. So, we hope you enjoyed hearing about the Grammys and how they select categories and Leslie's opinion on some of the voting opportunities. Please remember
You see where I'm going. You see where I'm going.
Go ahead and rub it in. Go ahead and rub it in. The Audio Production Town Hall is a monthly event, regularly about the third Monday of each class month. So keep an eye on Full Sail 1 for information about next month's Town Hall. Big thanks to this month's audiovisual technology class. These guys over here running everything. Thank you so much. Leslie, thank you. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. See you next time.
All right. Love y'all. Peace out.
Bye.
All right.